Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. Welcome to the Tejano Virtual Events. This session is going to be on self-care, and it's going to be presented by the EPCC Mental Health Committee. Our presenter today is Mr. Christian Salas. Before I hand it over to Mr. Salas, I would like to mention that this session will be recorded so that you may come back to it later. We will post the link at the end of the presentation, and it will be posted in the chat. Also, I want to mention this event will provide Tejano passport points, so the code will also be posted in the chat at the end of the session. And if you have any questions about Tejano passport, we'll be happy to answer those at the end. So now at this time, please mute your mics for the best sound experience. Otherwise, the feedback could interfere with information that we will be sharing today. Without further ado, here is our presenter, Mr. Christian Salas. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I was about to say good morning. I'm used to having early morning classes. Excuse me. But good afternoon. I was looking over at how many people are here, and that's a healthy amount of people. I'm glad that everybody was able to make it. Good afternoon. Hello, everybody. As mentioned, my name is Chris Salas. I am assistant professor of social work. Hopefully in a couple of months, I'll get to be associate professor of social work here at EPCC, making it a little harder for them to get rid of me. And hopefully also meaning that I get to do a lot more of these presentations for TBE and faculty, staff, and students, hopefully all of which are represented in our audience today. As introduction said, this is the presentation is brought to you by the letter A, by the not only Tejano Virtual Events, but your EPCC Mental Health Committee. And I always like giving a little shout out, a little acknowledgement to those that make it possible, right? So first and foremost, I always like giving my thank you to the staff over at TBE or Tejano Virtual Events for inviting myself and my fellow committee members to present on various topics. So keep your eyes open for some of my colleagues presenting on things like test anxiety, self-care, like the one I'll be doing today, and other topics that are of interest to you all. So I got to chair the Mental Health Committee for a couple of years, and now it's under the able hands of our new chair, Professor Tony. And so excuse me, a lot of great things coming out of the committee. For those of you that might be interested or would like to know more, obviously I'm not going to give the whole spiel here, but please don't hesitate to reach out. Let me know that you're interested or you would like to know more about what the Mental Health Committee does. I'll now share my contact information at the end of the presentation. All right, so if you've ever had me for class, which I'm pretty sure might not be some of you, might be some of my students here, who knows? But if you've ever attended one of my presentations as well, you know that I like to start off with, well, really I call them spoilers, right? Not really learning objectives, all that stuff. This isn't a lecture per se, but I like starting off with some spoilers. In essence, letting you know, hey, what are we going to talk about? And as good old Captain America once said, it's like, well, before we get started, does anybody want to get off? We're not going to get into a fight, but hey, maybe you're like, this isn't what I signed up for. So we'll be talking about self-awareness leading into self-care. There is a connection, right? Just humor me. You'll see where we're going with this. Starting off with self-awareness of, well, who are we, right? Who are you? And what influences who we are? What makes us, well, us? Excuse me. So let's start off with, lead by example, I guess, if we want to put it in those terms. Who am I? Well, let's start off simple. I am a social worker, right? My education and my background is in social work. It's not what I wanted to be all my life, right? I'm sure at some point or another, when you guys were little, you wanted to be something. Probably not what you're studying now. Maybe it was. I wanted to be an astronomer. I wanted to be a oceanographer. I wanted to be president at one time. And then I was like, no, that's not my jam. I was a aspiring engineer, civil engineer. Did my studies at UTEP for civil engineering. Decided to change my major to music. Got my first degree in music education, and it was more of a hobby to me than anything else. Someone had planted that seed of counseling, therapy, social work, kind of talking and helping people. So why not? Watered it, took an intro to social work class, and that was it, right? I'm an educator. As I just mentioned, not only am I a professor here at EPCC, but I've done some adjunct work at UTEP. I'm on contract with Johns Hopkins during the summer and go and provide mental health assistance to their residential programs up in Pennsylvania. And even if you noticed, my track record kind of talks, music education and social work and such. So there's always been kind of that denominator of educator, teacher. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I always say I'm the better, or not the better half. My wife is the better half of our couple, and also a father to two strutting young boys. Our oldest will be 13 this year, and our little baby boy Edward, who will be 3 this year. So 10-year difference. I am a son. Son and brother. I have my mom lives here in El Paso. My sister lives with her as well. I'm a lifelong El Pasoan, born and raised here in El Paso in the border region. Lived in Juarez for about 5 years. And as you can't tell, because I just noticed that I am wearing a rather bright shirt, sweatshirt, and it just happens that my baby boy picked out what shirt I was going to wear today, and it just happened that it matched the colors kind of well. So good for him. But I am a minor. I'm a proud UTEP grad. If you ever see me, I'll probably wearing be something UTEP. If you come to my office, if you can see back here, I have like my UTEP wall and such. But that's who I am, right? But that's not what you're here for, right? I hope not. The real question here is, who are you, right? And I don't ask that question lightly. Think of the things that I just mentioned, right? The multiple hats you wear. Because I'm sure that you're not just students, right? There's way much more to that than being a student. There's way too much more to you than just being a student. Think of all the things that pull at you each and every day. Whether you're an employee somewhere, you're the son of somebody, you're the daughter of somebody, you're a husband, you're a wife, you're a provider, right? You're a volunteer, you're a community leader, you're a church member, you're the president of an organization. There's something there, right, that defines who you are. Ultimately, however, it's how you define yourself, right? So who are you? And what makes you who you are? So let's take a little closer look and a little bit of a deeper dive into that. Obviously, if we look at the deeper picture of what makes us us, right? It's not just, I remember that I did a program in 4th grade, where they told you don't drink and drive, don't smoke. It goes beyond that. And so let's look at 3 different things, again, just to kind of set the tone for what we'll be talking about later on. But think of, for example, morals, your values, and even your ethics. So I put a little sentence underneath each of these terms just to have a better understanding of what these are. So morals, right? That's a person's standards of behavior or beliefs concerning what is and is not acceptable for them to do. Your morals. Who might teach you your morals? Where do you get your morals from? I remember having a conversation with a house guest one time and started talking about religion, and we won't get too much into this, but at the end of it, she asked me, well, how do you know the difference between right and wrong? I said, well, aside from my personal morals and beliefs of what I find to be right and wrong. My mom taught me right and wrong, right? And so our parents, our community, where we get that belonging from, right? And sometimes it might even be extended family, grandparents, aunts and uncles, cousins. If you belong to a larger community, the neighborhood, right? I remember back in the day when whoever were your neighbors, they all kind of had the not really responsibility, but they had the ability to correct you. They had, I remember the street that we lived in, Juarez. Everybody in that street, whose kids we used to play with and everybody hang out with, their doors were always open, so you can go from house to house. And I don't want to say that there was no dangers. I'm sure at some point there might have been a danger, but we all knew that what we ought to do and what we should not to do, right? How we should treat other people, how we should act with other people. And those were our morals. What about our values? That's a person's principles or standards of behavior, one's judgment of what is important in life, right? Simply put, what do you value, right? Do you value money? Do you value education? Do you value people, relationships, right? Are you the type of person that enjoys large groups of people, or are you the type of person that enjoys smaller cliques, right? Smaller groups of friends. People that value loyalty, people that value truth, people that value family, right? Alone time, right? What are the things that you value and thus lead to how you behave? What are the things that you do? And last but not least, let's talk about ethics. And the ethics are the moral principles that govern a person's behavior or conduct of an activity. Now, I'd be curious to know what everybody's majoring in, right? And just for my sake, if you can access the chat, just put what your major is. Throw in what your major is. What are you majoring? What are you studying? What are you aspiring to be? I would have put in there be social work or musician, nursing. All right. That's hard, man, especially like the pharmacology and such. Man, as a therapist, I remember having to read some of those names. Accounting and business, dental hygiene, nursing, linguistics, okay. Pharmacy tech, dental hygiene. Man, seriously, my hats go off to you guys because the terminology involved with that, holy cow. Thank God for Google. Political science, okay. Future state rep, future senator, representative maybe. President, vice president. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Again, that's, excuse me, veterinarian. Awesome. Well, that's new. I don't think I've ever had a participant or someone say veterinarian. Cool. Good for you. But I'm pretty sure that in each of these professions, think of, for example, nursing, the medical field, right? Not to put everybody on the spot for that, but the Hippocratic Oath, right? That's an ethical standard, an ethical belief that as medical providers you ascribe to, right? Thou shalt do no harm, right? I will do no harm. In other words, when you work with somebody, when you have a patient, your aim is to make someone better, to assist, right? Not to reject services and such. That's an ethical standard that as a profession dictates what you as a member of that profession ought to do, right? We have our code of ethics in social work, and we talk about our ethical values, and those are things that govern what we as social workers, mental health providers, case managers, so on and so forth, what we ought to do, right? Even as students, you might think like, I don't know, there's a code of conduct, the student handbook. Those are ethical standards that dictate what you as a student should do, how you should act, how you should behave, right? From the classroom to the work that you put in, And also for us, there's a faculty and staff handbook that say, hey, you know what, as a faculty member, you should not do this, you should do this, and so on and so forth. So there's definitely things that are out there that say, as a insert name here, this is how that group of people should act, should behave. Excuse me. So let's use that to think of what influences who we are, right? And living in a binational, bicultural, multi-generational, use whatever other tag words you want to, but we live in a rather unique area, right? And so culture is definitely something that influences who we are. Think of, for example, language, right? And who is it? I want to say Gemma says she studied linguistics, so I'm going to put her on the spot. No, I'm just kidding. But language, for example, right? How you express yourself, right? Have you ever thought that when you get angry, if you're bilingual, right, or multilingual for that matter, have you noticed that if you're angry or you're showing a certain emotion, you might think of or you might speak in a certain language rather than another, right? So, for example, if I'm really mad or upset, the Spanish comes out, right? I don't know. I feel like I can convey things worse in Spanish. They even ask you, like, what language do you dream in? Maybe what's your primary language, right? Which language do you use at home compared to which language you use at school, at work? Your family structure, that definitely influences who you are. In other words, you know, is it a patriarchal or matriarchal, right? Is it kind of mom is the kind of it all, or is it dad? Or does dad think he's the it all, but in reality is mom? Kind of like my household. But even who is part of the house? Who is part of the family? Sorry, right? Is it a single parent a single parent household? Are both parents missing? Is it a same-sex couple? Is it a family or a household with multiple families, right? Or I can tell you my experience. I came from a single parent household. My mom was both mom and dad, and my grandma lived with us. And I'm a very proud and very self-aware grandma's boy, not mama's boy. I was a grandma's boy. Man, I could do no wrong in my grandma's eyes, right? And so, that influenced who I was as well. Whatever grandma said, to this day, I say, un hombre es feo, fuerte y formal, right? A man is, the raw translation, is ugly, strong, and formal. And that's kind of my conceptualization. Even as a social worker in cultural competence and humility, that's my personal belief, right? El hombre es feo, fuerte y formal. Maybe a topic for another time. Your rearing, how were you raised? Right? Did you have a strong, strict way of being raised? Or is it lax, kind of do as you will, learn on your own? What about the food, the music, right? Food definitely depicts or lets us know how you express your culture, right? My wife is Middle Eastern. She's from Syria. And so a lot of the food that we have at home tends to be recipes and things that she kind of uses from the Middle East. And, she'll fudge things here and there and make this and try new things here, which is delicious. I mean, you don't get to get my physique by not eating. And I get the best of both worlds. I get Mexican food from my mom, and sometimes from my wife that gets adventurous and tries some Mexican food. And then the Middle Eastern food, right? Music, the type of music that you listen to. Again, if you ever see me driving my truck or here in my office, sometimes I just got my little speaker. I can go from Frank Sinatra to Metallica to Los Angeles Azules to Gloria Estefan to, I have a very eclectic music taste, right? So but I'm very set in, I like the older music. I like the classic rock. I like classic country. I like this. And there's definitely things that I don't like. Your family roles, right? In essence, who does what? And let's be honest, culture definitely but influences the roles of different family members from and especially in Hispanic and Latino families, where, there might be a specific role that the males in the family, and again, just for the sake of conversation, we'll just stick to males, females, men and women, boys, girls, as the biological sex, right? But we can use the stereotypes of, well, the boys, the men will work, and the girls, the women will be the caregivers, the providers and such. That might be some of the roles that are ascribed, right? The oldest, the youngest, the middle, right? The oldest daughter, the youngest daughter, the oldest male, the youngest male, the father, the mother, even the roles within that, the extended family, right? The suegra, the in-laws. So even that influences who we are, right? We see things, we absorb it, sometimes we replicate it. And last but not least, let's even talk about the migration story. If you've been a long life El Pasoan, okay, but how did your family end up here? Were they themselves lifelong El Pasoans, or from Juarez or other areas? It's interesting sometimes to even hear the stories of how people came here, right? Again, talk to my wife and hear the story of of all the places, how her family all ended up in El Paso of all places. At one point, she was in Syria. My brother-in-law was somewhere in the Emirates. My other brother-in-law was in Cleveland. My sister-in-law was in France. And so the whole family was poof. And somehow everybody came to Paso. It's quite a story, right? So sometimes that even influences how you got here from. And I'm sure some of us have been there before. I don't want to go to Utah because it's here. I want to leave. I want to get out of here. Right? That's kind of my story. And now every time I come back to El Paso from a conference or vacation, and you're landing or you're driving and you see the mountain, it's like, I'm home, man. This is it. I missed my mountains. I missed my star. It's home. But anywho, I hope you all are thinking this isn't just me telling you my story. Not at all. What I want you all to start thinking about is what and how do these things influence who you are, right? And there is a point. There is a point to all this, okay? So something like, this isn't, what the heck? This isn't what I signed up for. Yeah, you did, because I said the spoilers. All right, so one more thing before we get on to it. What about your education? And let me tweak this a little bit. What I mean by education is look at the importance that is placed on work versus education, right? And culture, family can have a lot to do with that. Heck, even society. Is there more of a push or a pull to go to work, right? Make money, move up the ladder per se, or education? Forgo working for a little bit or getting a decent job or a better job or whatever, however you want to describe it, and improve your education. Get that little piece of paper that says, hey, you know how to do something, and then go and get a better job, right? That's what we want. In some places, sometimes family pushes one over the other. The balances are tipped in one direction or the other. Sometimes that means the resources are there for people to not have to worry about work and worry about education. Sometimes it's not that case. What is your highest level of education? What is the highest level of education that you would wish to pursue, that you can pursue, right? And hopefully that's not the question of what you can, because Everyone is capable of doing it, right? Is it achievable? Can you get it? Most definitely. Is it hard? Most definitely, right? Getting an associate's can be hard. Getting a bachelor's, a master's, a doctorate, right? Your licensing, things of that nature, it's hard, right? Money-wise, resources, time, commitment. There's a lot of sacrifices that go behind that. What about how you learn, right? And how you see things. Are you left-brained, right-brained? Are you more of an analytical person, or are you more of an artistic person? Are you more an audible learner? Are you more of a visual learner? Right? Excuse me. And what about your own profession? The path that you decide to take influences who you are, right? I recall, being young and stupid at one point, and sitting there with friends making jokes about people. I'll be honest, and saying this and saying that, and when I started social work and I started seeing like, wow, you know what? I was being very, well, just, I wasn't giving people the benefit of the doubt. I wasn't looking at the whole person. I was seeing at that point in time. And it came to fruition one time that me and my buddy were in his car or in his truck, and we were crossing and we saw, like a paletero, right? You guys know what a paletero is, right? They have like the bikes with a big crate in the middle. Usually sells ice cream, paletas, right? Icicle pops or ice pops and things of that nature. And this was probably like 11:30 at night. And the gentleman wasn't even riding the bike. He was walking next to it. And my friend starts making a stupid comment. And I turn at him like, hey, man, what if he just finished working at the bridge or working downtown or walking or doing some neighborhoods and is barely going home after a long day of work in the Paso heat? I don't see an umbrella. I don't see anything. So this dude must be freaking hot. Tired. That's why he's not even pedaling right now. And going home and probably not even getting to see his kids because it's 11:30 at night. But he looks at me and goes like, wow, man, you're no fun anymore. Well, what's that supposed to mean? Right? So definitely our profession and the paths that we take really dictate who we are, right? Who we end up being, the things going back to the morals, the values, and the ethics. What are our morals? How do we morally see individuals, right? Through what eyes, through what lenses do we see the world? All right, another little interactive for you guys. Hopefully you guys are able to get the kinks out of logging in. I know the TV staff is working hard to get that out to you guys, and I'm glad that those questions are being answered. But what other things do you potentially see that influence who you are, right? Maybe it's some of these. You maybe have examples of some of the things that I just mentioned that you wouldn't mind sharing, or other things that have influenced who you are or who you are right now that might be currently influencing you, that have influenced you. Go ahead and put those in the chat. I'll give you a couple of seconds, maybe 10, 15 seconds before we move on. Again, just curious as to seeing what else influences you all out there. Could be friends, could be church, media, social media, extended family, being the oldest. Yeah, most definitely. Family and past relationships. Yeah. Say we learn from our past experiences, right? We learn from our relationships, from whether it was a romantic relationship or just friendships, right? Things like loyalty, trust. Excellent. So again, self-awareness, self-care. Where am I going with this, right? So here's the point. Get it? At the end of the day, we're unique. there is no other person in this world that is just like you, that's just like me, right? I tell my oldest kiddo this because my wife's nephew is a smart kid. Got accepted to Harvard, just finished his first semester at Harvard, and I feel like now my son, our oldest, is kind of put to that as a comparison, right? And every time I'm like, hey, one thing is saying like, cool, all right, look at what your cousin did, learn from it. Another thing is like, be like him. No, don't be like him. Learn and do your own stuff, right? There is not going to be another like your cousin. And that also means that there's never going to be another you. So you are unique, right? And no, I get it. This sounds kind of like a self-help group and such, but really, you are unique. Your own experiences, your influences. And you might have brothers and sisters and everything, but not everybody has gone through life just like you have. And so why is that important? Well, you know, hopefully, yourself better than anybody else, right? I don't know you just because I've asked a couple of questions. I might know your major and I might know who influenced you and so on and so forth. But that has nothing to do with me knowing you. I don't. So hopefully you know yourself, and you know yourself much better than anybody else does. So you hopefully know what makes you happy, right? We all have a different definition of what makes us happy. I couldn't have been more happy that if the Cowboys were going to play in the Super Bowl this Sunday, especially because my birthday is on Monday. And if they would have made it to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl, it'd have been a great birthday gift. For some people, they're not happy enough that the Cowboys lost in the first round of the playoffs. So again, we have a difference in opinion or a difference in definition as to what happy means, right? What makes you mad? What makes you upset? Are there levels of anger? Are there levels of, I'm mad, I'm ticked off, I'm this, I'm that, right? What are the things that make you mad? And, excuse me, how do you get out of a rut? In other words, when you're feeling down, when you're feeling, that things could be better, you're just feeling, I say like you're walking like Eeyore, right? That you feel like you're walking, Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, the little donkey, right? It's walking around always kind of like with a cloud over his head going, oh, Pooh. So how do you get yourself out of those situations? That also takes knowing you, because you know how to, in essence, pull yourself back up, right? Knowing yourself goes a long way, because if you know yourself, you know these things. You know what makes you happy, you know what makes you mad, you know what makes you upset, and so on and so forth. So if you know that, guess what? You're halfway there. Halfway to where, you might ask? Well, ready? Say it with me. Well, I guess you can't say it until I show you. Da, 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 da. Self-care. So it's not just, there you go. Thank you. I'm glad. Thank you. If you had been my student, I'd have given you extra credit. Thank you, Norma. But self-care, right? It's not just a tagline. Believe me, coming from a therapist, and we're like, oh, well, self-care is, heck, there's times when we say it and then we don't do it, right? We're probably the worst at that. Heck, maybe faculty and staff, like, well, you should do this. And then we procrastinate, like, guys, your work wasn't turned in on time and blah, 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 blah. And then we go like, oh, crap, I didn't grade this. Oh, crap, I haven't done this. Oh, man, I didn't turn this in. I know we all do that, right? Hopefully, I'm not the only one. No? Okay. So let's dive into this, and as we start to kind of bring the ship home, right? So staying healthy, staying safe, staying sane. This was my saying to my students during the pandemic. Heck, even now, right? I'm telling them, like, man, just go out there. Hope you're staying healthy, staying safe, and staying sane. And in doing so, or how can we get there is by having that self-awareness, knowing us, knowing who we are, right? As Shakespeare once said, to thine own self be true. I'm trying to quote and I can't even say it. So I remember this was a saying that one of my fraternity brothers kept on saying one time, and it just, it kind of stuck with me after a while. And in essence, what it's saying is, don't kid yourself. Be honest to yourself, right? You know how much you can take on your plate. You know what you can't and can do. Now, that shouldn't keep you from trying things, right? Well, I really shouldn't. No. Can you try it? I guess I could. Do you have time for it, though, right? Are you able to? Not are you able, but can you? So there's definitely a sense of not only do we know ourselves, but being honest to ourselves. This helps us stay even keeled, right? If we know how much we can handle, if we know how much we can take on our plate, we're able to say no. And that is a hard thing to do. I get it. But we can definitely do so, right? And self-care, obviously the main topic of what we were talking about today. But I think in this sense, it takes a little backseat to self-awareness, because self-care really, it can mean anything to anybody. In some instances, my wife is a very social person. She loves going to this and to parties and to this. I'm not. I might be sociable. I am a social worker, right? But I recharge, I refuel by myself. So, case in point, during the day, working, teaching classes, going meetings, doing this, doing that. Yeah, man, I'm out and about. I get home, spend time with the baby, spend time with the family, sit down, do my workout, and go shower. And then once everybody goes to sleep, I just sit in the couch, maybe watch a little TV, get on the phone. Sometimes it's just kind of sit and just decompress. And that's my self-care, right? That's how I kind of take care of myself. Alone, just kind of quiet. As a therapist, I remember someone once told me, like, I've realized that I'll wait 30 minutes to an hour after you get out of work to call you. And it's something I didn't even get until they mentioned, like, yeah. And I was like, wow, that makes perfect sense. The entire day I listened to people, right? 8 to 5. That was my job. Listening to people, listening to people's problems. And listening, processing, providing feedback, working on treatment plans, doing assessments, doing interventions, this, bum. And the last thing I wanted to do at the end of the day was talk or listen. I just wanted to just leave me alone. Right? But that's knowing myself. I guess I didn't know myself at that point just yet. So hence why self-awareness and self-care go hand in hand. Because if you know yourself, you know what will recharge you. You know what will drain you. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I just mean what's going to take your energy and how are you going to get that energy back, right? We are not robots. We need our fuel, whether that's mental, whether that's physical, whether that's emotional, however it is. But we need our rest. We need to, we can't just hit a button and poof, everything goes away. It's fine to ask for help. It's okay to talk to people, right? It doesn't have to be a therapist, but just poof. One of the initiatives that I particularly working with the mental health committees, creating this thing called Cubole Day, kind of like a what's up, how you doing, right? Where the goal is Tejanos taking care of Tejanos, right? EPCC taking care of EPCC. Faculty, staff, and students just checking in on each other. Hey, Cubole, how's it going? Everything good? And it's not just a hey, and pass each other. No, actually listening like, hey, everything all right? Cool, yeah. I start my day every time with my students, every class, I start off with the COWS, C-O-W, an acronym for Crisis of the Week. before we even touch anything to do with the lecture. Walk in, hey guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, how's everybody doing? Everything good? Any cows this week? Any cows this past couple of days? We good? Because I want to check in on my students. How are they doing? Where are they mentally? And can I potentially help or assist them with something? Right? And if I know that they're in a good place, then hey, we can go on with the lecture, and that makes it much, at least on my end, better knowing that their mind might be there instead of somewhere else worrying about their sick child or their sick parents, or not knowing how they're going to pay their bills, or doing this, or that they got a bad grade in this other class that could potentially influence their what's the word, financial aid, and so on and so forth. And because their mind's somewhere else, they're not going to get the concept and the material that we're going to be covering that day, which could set them back. So we do that. Anywho, make a list and check it twice. Well, think of this as, think of this as making a list of anything from what you enjoy to what you don't enjoy. I mean, this could be a hypothetical list. You're just like, oh, noted, not doing this again, right? Learn from your experiences, learn from the past. So again, just a little tidbit as to what I do for my self-care, right? I love Lego because that's an alone thing, right? And if you come to my office, this is all in my office, by the way. This is not at home. My office looks like there's not a professor, not a professional working here. It looks like probably like some little kid came to the office and took over and did the modeling, right? Like I have my Voltron, I have my Optimus Prime up here, I got my Ecto 1 from Ghostbusters, and my time machine from Back to the Future. I got a bunch of Star Wars stuff. So I missed that one. My manager? What do you mean by manager? Oh, sorry. Yeah, right. It's my professional man cave. I don't know. Yeah, but seriously, if you guys would come to see my office, if you're curious, A1102 here at Valle Verde, just be like, oh, yeah, that explains it. But anywho, that's my self-care, right? I built these things, especially during the breaks, like the winter break and the summer break. Man, that's when I kind of get it going and start building stuff. And then they end up in my office during the semester. Another thing is music. I still play sometimes. You know, I'm a tuba player. I'm a heavy metal player. And during the winter break, that's when this picture happened. I played with the UTEP alumni band. Right, we played for some of the basketball games for the Don Haskins Invitational, the basketball tournament at UTEP during December. And obviously with family. So it's not just alone, but I recharge with family, right? Spending time with the baby, the wife, our oldest, going to his concerts. He plays guitar. He just made the all-region jazz band as a 7th grader twice now. He made it in 6th and 7th grade, the top band. A tuba player, following dad's steps, even though I think guitar is his thing. You know, we like going on trips. Thank you. Yeah, I love it. I mean, music is one of those things that it's an outlet for me as well. But again, that's my self-care, right? I can't tell you what your self-care is. By knowing yourself, by being aware of who you are, you can then dictate, or you can show what it is that you like, or you can come up with a list of what it is that you like. One thing that I really have been trying to put on my list is just setting time aside to read stuff that I want to read, not a textbook, not an article on this, but I have so many books at home that I've been meaning to read that I want to carve out, even if it's just 30 minutes at night, right? And maybe I need to read before I go do my workout so that I don't come back and be like, ugh, and just like a zombie. But I'm working on it, right? that's, I guess, if anything, that's it. So just as long as we're working at it, as long as we know that we ought to know ourselves, and by knowing ourselves, we know how to recharge our batteries, how to avoid things that suck our energy dry, right? Knowing how we act when our batteries are low, knowing how we act when our batteries are high. I'm a night owl, right? Which makes me a not very pleasant person in the morning. My wife is the opposite. She's a very much more of a morning person and not a night person at all, right? So in the morning, she's like, good morning, bye-bye. And I'm like, get away from me, right? Very loving, I know. And at night, I'm the opposite. I'm like, babe, blah, blah, blah. She's like, just stop. So we're very, so I guess we just have to find that median during the middle of the day, right? But again, know what makes you happy. Know how do you recharge your batteries. How is it that you do that? And that's your self-care, right? This is mine, or partially the things I do. Heck, even this, doing presentations and such, this recharges me, man. I love what I do, and I love where I do it at. And just talking and sharing some of these things, man, this is great. I always enjoy when I'm asked to do these presentations. And the interaction that I get, even with students now, everything's online, and even some of the face-to-face classes, it's like pulling teeth to get feedback and engage with people. Man, it's this kind of gets me going. I love doing this sort of stuff because I get to share my passion, the things I love, the things I enjoy to do. So just about 3 minutes short of our time. And as always, I put this out there for everybody. So don't hesitate to reach out. Any questions, comments, concerns, anything that I can be assistant to. In the last couple of months, I've been privileged to take on different roles here at the college. From serving in the BIT team, which is the behavior intervention team, to the CRIT team, which is the critical incident response team, the BIT triage team. I mean, there's been quite a few things that I've become involved with. And so I guess the thing I want to make sure and implore everybody's, reach out. You just never know. And you won't get a no from us. At least from me, you won't get a no. If I don't know where to get assistance from, or where to kind of guide you, believe me, I'll find someone. As I tell my students, I don't like not knowing things. And so if you reach out and you have a question that I'm like, you know what, I don't know. Better know that the following sentence is going to be, well, let's find out. Or let me point you in the right direction. All right, everybody. So again, that's my contact information. My email, csalas69@epcc.edu. Again, I'm here at the Valle Verde campus, Building A, room 1102. And my office number, 2469. You're more than welcome to call if I'm not in the office or if I'm in class. Leave a message, and those go directly to my voicemail. So again, that's my contact information. By all means, please feel free to reach out. And with that, Ms. Gemma and Clara, I return the power of the presentation back to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salas, and thank you again for the presentation. If anybody has any questions, feel free to turn on your mic or to use the chat box, and we'll answer them from there. So we would like to thank everyone for being a wonderful audience and for coming in today. Remember that these sessions are recorded, so if you'd like to review or share anything from this presentation, those recorded sessions can absolutely help. We shared the Tejano Passport link so that everyone may receive their points for coming in today. I'll share it again just in case anyone missed the link or had trouble with the first link. We'll be back next week with Tejano virtual events, and I'll go ahead and I'll share our flyer to show you guys the rest of the sessions.